California MBA DEI Podcast. My name is Tai Christensen, and I'm the co-founder and chief diversity officer for Arrive Home. Arrive Home is the social enterprise that facilitates homeownership through a national down payment assistance program and also special purpose programs for non-traditional borrowers. And I want to thank you for joining us today. First and foremost, I want to thank our sponsor, which is PCV Mercor. They are a nationwide real estate valuation management company. We appreciate your sponsorship and continued support of this podcast. Today, I am so happy to introduce my friend, Lisa Haynes. She is the Senior Vice President, Chief Financial Officer, and Chief Diversity Officer for the Mortgage Bankers Association. She's over 30 years of experience in finance and accounting, and she's been with the Mortgage Bankers Association since 2014. But prior to that, she worked with Fannie Mae. So Lisa, first of all, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Tai.
You're welcome. And she's just getting over a cold, y'all. So we're gonna work with her, and we are just blessed that she's joining us today. So thank you. And I'm gonna try to make this quick so we can save your vocal cords. Specifically, thank you for joining us for Women's History Month. So let's just get started and jump right in. Tell me how you got into the industry, how you started working for Fannie Mae, what your original roles were, and how you worked your way up to joining the MBA.
Well, thank you for having me, Tai. I appreciate being here. I am normally not a baritone, and so my voice is trying to recover. Unfortunately, getting on planes is not helping it right now. I started out in the mortgage industry, like most people, by accident. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. I was living in Boston and running my own consulting company, enjoying life and kind of hanging out. And I got a call from a headhunter about a company named Fannie Mae who needed CPAs. I had actually never heard of Fannie Mae before. And then when I looked it up, somebody said something about a candy company. Clearly, they were wrong. And so I wound up coming down for the interview, and it was during restatement. So I wound up being recruited with, a slew of other CPAs to come down and help Fannie Mae kind of really right the ship, restate its financial statements. So that's how I wound up at Fannie. I spent 8.5 years at Fannie, just working through various different, it seemed to be one thing after another. I think I had about 6 or 7 jobs in the 8.5 years that I was there, because there's always something changing. But it was really my entree into the mortgage industry, into the real estate finance industry, and really starting to understand both the commercial and the residential side.
I love it. And I love the fact that you kind of happenstanced into the mortgage industry, because I've been in the industry since 2002. I went to school to be an interior designer, and I happenstanced into the industry too.
Exactly.
I had a girlfriend who was a processor, and she thought I'd be really great at it. So I don't know a single person in all my years of being in the industry and all my years of talking to people. Nobody says that this is their dream job, their thing. It's my friend got me in. My uncle was a loan officer. I had a buddy who was an appraiser. And so I feel like none of us really picked to be here, but here we are, and we've all had these long-standing careers, So I think it's really great when you think about the foray into the industry, and additionally, how we bring in more young people and women and people of color into our industry as well, right?
Right, absolutely. I mean, I think that's so important that we consider the diversity of our industry. I mean, it is no secret that you look around a room in any given conference, or you look around the room in any given meeting, and it's predominantly white male. And I think that one of the things that we have to understand is that the country is changing. The makeup of the country is changing. And as an industry, we have to be ready to focus in on who the new buyer is. We won't be able to do mortgages the way we did in the 1950s, even the 1960s, probably not even in the 2000s. Different generation. Millennials will be the most diverse generation that we have, and whoever's after them, all the letters that come after the millennials, Gen Z, Gen whatever, they are going to be a very diverse generation, and how they deal with data and information is going to be very different. So we as an industry have to be ready to deal with that. The number of women-led households is expanding. We need to know, how do we hit that market, right? So that's why it's important that we continue to focus on diversifying the industry, because we have to know how to go after those markets, right? The diversity of thought. If you don't have that in the room, you won't necessarily know how to hit the Hispanic market. You won't necessarily know how to hit the African American market. if you don't have people in those markets who can say this works, this doesn't work, and even more important, you can say this, you can't say that. And so some of the marketing blunders I have seen go on, I always say to whoever's next to me, when I happen to see that, it's clearly there was nobody of that particular intersectionality in the room when they made that decision. So that's why I think it's important that our industry continues to focus on the diversity of it, because we need to be able to respond. I always say that if we're not very careful, some of our members are going to be like Blockbuster, who never saw Netflix coming. And in the rearview mirror, Netflix came up and took over. Blockbuster was doing business as it always had. It was trying to shift, but slowly. And Netflix came out of nowhere. Nobody can find a Blockbuster store today. We want to make sure that our members are ready. We want to make sure that our members are preparing themselves for what's going to be a different generation and a different way that we do business.
And I think your point to marketing is so crucial because as we all people of color have seen these blunders on market. I mean, look, in my own company, I've been handed marketing material and I've said, you can't say this. You cannot picture these people this way. And if you are not sensitive to those small little nuances, those small cultural differences, you come off looking cash crazy. And that is, and you don't want to go viral for that. I mean, you know, we've seen it too many times before. And just slapping a black or a brown face on a piece of marketing material is not cultural outreach to the community. And
absolutely. And the blunders sometimes can be hard to come back from, because the folks in that community remember. If you think that they don't remember those marketing materials, they do. They become memes. They become, you know, to repeats on Twitter, and you know, those kind of things hit social media, and they don't die for a long time because somebody creates a meme and it's used from now on, and a joke or whatever. So it's really important that companies pay attention to what it is that they're putting out there. Make sure you're getting the right advice on, yeah, that makes sense, or that doesn't make sense. Or to your point, you can't say that, or the way you're using that material is a little on the offensive side. I know that you think your intention is this, but it's coming off this way.
You know, I read this yesterday, a report about AAVE, which is African American Vernacular English, or, you know, African American slang, to just, you know, dampen it down a little bit and make it a little bit more easy to understand. And marketers, white marketers, are starting to use some AAVE and slang terms from our community, but they're using them incorrectly, and they're using them in a way that is offensive. And, you know, you just need to be so sensitive to these cultural nuances, because our communities of color have had enough emotional trauma in these spaces, and we need people who are sensitive to wanting to truly bring us into home ownership.
Absolutely.
So moving to your diversity efforts with MBA, you are the Chief Diversity Officer for the Mortgage Bankers Association. When did you begin your diversity efforts with MBA? Any highlights or successes that you're really, really proud of that you want to share? And additionally, looking to the future, what do you hope to see in the next coming years?
Yeah, Tai, I could talk about this for about 10 minutes, but I know we don't have a lot of time. So let me see if I can make it quick. I started in DE&I. I am a trade finance and accounting person, but I started in DE&I because I wanted to do something more at the MBA, and I had some bandwidth. And so the then CEO, Dave Stevens, asked if I would take on DE&I. At the time, we had an effort where there were multiple people in multiple departments, but we had no one person who was kind of really owning and responsible for driving strategy. So he asked me if I would take it over, and I did. Back in 2018. Since then, we now have 2 full-time people working in DE&I, which I'm very proud of that we were able to, that the board was able to really make it a priority to create 2 full-time positions for that. In addition, we've created a larger strategy, which we folded into the Home for All Pledge, which I also lead. The Home for All Pledge was stood up by our former chair, Christy Furco, as a way to get the industry to come together and make homeownership for minority populations a priority. And so DE&I is one of the pillars, along with several other, of the Home for All Pledge. And in that pledge, we're focused on things like supplier diversity. So recently we signed into a consortium with some of our commercial members, but this consortium will be for all MBA members, where our member companies will have discounted access to a diverse supplier database, so that they can go in and find diverse suppliers, particularly for our commercial folks where they have some ERG requirements. It will allow them to go and search for the suppliers who qualify under MWBE. So we're really proud of that, really proud of being able to push that out, to offer that to our members, and to really begin to, what I think is, help build some of the equity that's needed in the communities of color, by investing in their businesses. The other things that we've done are things like a DEI playbook. So we have a playbook that's free to our members, and it's kind of the how-to guide. If you're starting from scratch, if you're in the middle, what kinds of things should we be doing? What should we be looking out? So really proud of the work we're doing there. And then finally, the work we're doing with our partners. We have several partners that we are working with. And I'll just speak to, we have Home for USA, which is, one of our partners that really focuses on minority home ownership. And I just recently had the opportunity to speak at Norfolk University at their outreach program to their community. And one of the things that I talked about was the importance of housing counseling. I think we don't encourage enough of housing counseling. We tell people we want them to go, look for a home. They start with the realtor. That's actually the last step, not the first step. And Home for USA is one of our partners. And one of the things that they're also doing is they have a Center for Financial Advancement, where they're teaching students in HBCUs about the home buying process, about saving, about credit, about financial literacy. So we're partnering with them along with several of our members. They're in about 14 schools now where they're teaching students. I think their reach has been 1,000 students so far, and the program's been in place just 4, 5, or 6 years. And they're reaching students to say, not only is this a good industry to work in, but here's what you can do so that when you graduate from college, you can prepare yourself to buy a home. And they've had several students, 4 or 5 students, who purchased homes out of college. And just seems to me a far reach. I remember when I graduated from college, I was nowhere near ready to buy a house, but they've had several students who have been able to buy a house coming out of college. I think that's the type of investment that we need to be making in the future of the mortgage industry. Is how do we prepare these students to come out and recognize that buying a home is a place where they can not only build some equity, not only build some wealth, but they can create a legacy for their family.
You are like preaching near and dear to my heart right now. Legacy home ownership. The whole world has heard my story by now, but that's why I am where I am and why I'm so passionate about diversifying the mortgage industry. I've seen it in my own family. I've seen it through the generations. It is critical and it is crucial, and especially talking to our young people and putting the emphasis on home buyer education. I can't speak enough about home buyer education.
Absolutely.
Specifically as a community of people who typically come from generational renting. It is a major transformation to go from calling the super when you have a problem on taking that yourself. And we don't talk about it enough in our Black communities. We don't talk about it enough in our Latin communities.
No, I absolutely agree. I think that as I spoke to someone the other day and she said, I'm going to start looking for buying a house. And I said, who are you talking to? She named the realtor who helped her get the apartment she's in. I said, start at the other end. Start with the housing council. She said, oh, well, she connected me with a finance person. I said, the realtor's finance person is not a housing counselor. I said, let me tell you what the housing council will do for you. Not only will they help you with your own personal credit and getting yourself together, they know the programs that you need to be applying for. Your realtor probably doesn't know all the programs, but the housing counselor does. The housing counselor knows which programs will benefit you most and where you can get money. And I think that that's critical for us to help people to understand that our members, our banks, our lenders out there, they have programs that offer closing costs, that offer down payment assistance. But if we don't know about them, if we're not educating them about that, they're simply going out and applying and getting declined for a loan without understanding why. So that to me is why the housing counselor piece is so important.
It's critical because as originators and officers, I came up in retail, so it's go, 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 go. You want to start, finish, close, start, finish, close.
Exactly.
oftentimes as originators and loan officers and processors, we don't have the time to sit down with the consumer and say, hey, did you know that there are 5 different closing cost assistance packages in your county? There's 3 different down payment assistance programs you can qualify for. Let's see which ones work best for you.
Absolutely.
You know, they aren't spending the time to do that. So I think that that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, I wish that we could we'll continue to preach that message. That's one of our pillars as well, as around the financial education piece. And we're looking forward to doing it. We have partnered with an author who wrote a children's book. And I'm pretty sure it's the only children's book about buying a house, called Princess Mackie Buys a House. And the book has been given to students, and it started with AmeriFirst Mortgage, and they gave it to students in Kalamazoo. And our goal is, if we could get this in the hands of every middle school student, parents are reading these books because it's an illustrated book and a simple way to understand the home buying process. As a matter of fact, when I went to Norfolk recently, I brought up the book, and several people came to me afterward and said, "Can I get a copy of that book?" So we're going to ship some of those books down to Norfolk for the parents who asked for the book. But I think that however we can begin to educate people on this home buying process, because even right now, while the market is tough, I know that housing stock is low. I know that rates are up, but we need to have a pipeline of people who are ready to buy a home when the market starts to shift. We can't wait until the market starts to shift and rates start to go down and say, hey, let's go find those folks. Well, if we get them ready now, then when the market turns, when the mortgage rates are more favorable, when the houses become available, we'll have that slew of people who are ready to buy a home.
Yeah. And to your point, if the consumer knows about closing cost assistance and down payment assistance, they may be able to get into a home, even though the rates are a little bit higher right now, if they have those offsetting compensation factors that will help them.
Exactly.
So unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our time, but I do want to end with one final question that I'm going to ask all of my guests. If you could go back to the beginning of your career, what one piece of advice would you give your younger self? And with the caveat being your younger self would listen to you, because my younger self would listen to no
one. That might be the advice, to tell my younger self to listen. But I think that I would take more risks of things that are outside of my comfort zone. I think growing up early in my career, I was always comfortable in accounting and finance. That's a space that I always knew that I would be successful in. But having now gotten to a different level, I recognize that there are gifts and talents outside of finance that I should have and could have been grooming all of this time to be even broader. So while I am very pleased at where I am today and the job that I have today, I think I would have told my younger self, don't be afraid, step outside of that box and take on something that's slightly outside. Like you said, you didn't, your major was fashion design. So whatever that major was, to just kind of say, well, this could be a little bit interesting. It adds a little bit of twist. So that's the advice I would give myself.
Oh, I love that. Even I wish I could have given myself that advice too. The job I have right now, I only have it because I took a random chance to go speak to the Congressional Black Caucus. I wasn't a public speaker. I didn't know I could public speak. I just liked traveling, and my sister lives outside of DC. So I was like, okay, that sounds great.
That's a great trip for me.
Get a little vacation. And I didn't know it was going to correlate into this job. So to your earlier point, yeah, get out of your comfort zone and say yes to opportunities that you may have typically said no to. So. Well, Lisa, I appreciate your time today, specifically since I know you're under the weather. So for me and the California MBA, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see everyone next month. Bye, guys.